All right, welcome back. Today we're going to have Coach Derek Leonard. He's the head coach at Rochester High School down in Rochester, Illinois. Coach, thanks for being here.
No problem. Thanks for having me, man.
Or Title Town, as I call it down there in Rochester. I call that Title Town. Um, Coming off another state title win, you're relaxing a little bit now. How does it feel now, relaxed, looking back on the season? You guys got your other ninth state title there. How does it feel after relaxing, looking back on it?
Yeah, it was good. It was a fun year. Good man. I had a great group of seniors, two coaches' kids, my D coordinator son and my offensive line son. So it was those kids have grown up being ball boys, water boys. So I
Mhm.
knew this group pretty well growing up, and it was a fun. They were a fun group. They didn't give me much trouble. They were good kids. They were smart football players. Um, so it was good. It was really good. But it is time. It's nice now to relax a little bit. Like I don't care how good your year, how bad your year is. All coaches know, man. There's a time when it's over
Yeah,
and it's a sigh of relief. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
I don't care if it's good or bad. We all need that break, and man, that's where I am right now. Kind of, is I just man, it was good. I needed Christmas, and
mhm.
I needed that break because I think we just like we were talking earlier. It's just now from June to thanks. If you're lucky enough to go to Thanksgiving, it's a grind, man. It's
Yeah.
it's 6 months of getting after it, and so and really, the first few months, and then you got to collect equipment,
Mhm.
banquet. That week after football is sometimes the worst, and then Christmas break. So once we got that break, that was good for me. So
Yeah, mentally we need that. Like, I can't imagine for you, you're used to going into Thanksgiving, but I couldn't imagine every year almost going to Thanksgiving. Like you said, my wife might kill me if that happened all the time going into Thanksgiving.
yeah, I feel bad. Me and my the basketball coach here are good friends. We always joke, you know what I mean? Because they usually miss 2 or 3 weeks, and so
Yeah.
um, he yeah, it's rough. But it's a good problem for us, bad for him. But yeah, no, yeah, it is. Man, that month is big because again, you get into Thanksgiving break,
Uh-huh.
then you
Yep.
jump right into Christmas. That December is always quick
Yeah.
after that break, and so it's always an interesting. It's a good problem to have, obviously,
Yeah.
right? But
Right.
it is fast, and the things come up on you quick. And like I said, Christmas is kind of that time where you finally get to breathe a little bit and relax.
Yeah. Um, I wanted to tell you something funny. I've seen you the last couple summers. You come up to the suburbs. You're doing the 7-on-7 that we joined, and it was so funny this year for some reason. I look over. I'm like, hey, first of all, when your kids showed up 2 years ago, they were in cowboy hats and boots like your linemen. I loved it. The head coach loved it. Our kids were like, "What the hell is that?" And I'm like, "That's Rochester." How do you know? I was like, "Trust me, that's Rochester." And I loved it. So this year when we were watching you guys, they were like, our kids now were like, "Where's the cowboy hats and the boots?" Because nobody else wears them. And, and it was real funny because I met you a couple of times through people I knew. And I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go talk to Derek." And they go, "Wait, you're just gonna walk up to him and talk to him? That's Derek Leonard." And I'm like, "Yes, I'm just gonna walk up to him and say hi." They think you're this real large, like he's not gonna talk to you. He's not gonna talk to you. I was like, "Yeah, he is." And I go up and say hi. So like people up here know who you are, and I just thought it was hilarious that the cowboy hats and that I could just walk up to you guys and talk to you. I know you, I know Steve. I'm like, I'm just gonna go talk to them. Like, I don't know if they're
Yeah.
intimidating to people or what, but people are like, "You're just gonna go up there?"
God, I hope not. I'm glad you do that because that's the last thing I want to be. Is That's not me. I hope it's not me. So, and the cowboy thing, it's funny. Each group's different down here. You've been in Central
Yeah,
Illinois.
yeah.
That group 2 years ago, that was as country cowboyish as I had ever had. This year, not quite as much, but it's funny the years and the music they listen to, what they do. That group, man, they love to fish, hunt. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I wasn't that way. I was a Springfield. I was a city kid. I just Springfield.
right,
I never didn't fish much. You know what I mean? I really don't
right.
like animals much, and so even for me, it's kind of these kids are a little goofy at times, but it matters the group. Like this group this year wasn't near as much like that. The group 2 years ago that you saw, man,
Mhm.
pure cowboy
Yep.
country as it got. So it's funny how each group is different down here.
I loved it because with the linemen first, they had the cutoffs, the cowboy hats, and I personally was like, that's what we because being in Oakwood, like we had trees around our field, and I'm like, that's what we wore. Like this is awesome.
Right.
Well, because again, like we were saying earlier, everybody thinks south of I-80 is just country, and I'm like, no, Springfield is surrounded by it and stuff, but it's
Right.
not. It's not hick and what like you said. So I just thought that was hilarious.
And
Just
people that know Rochester, it's funny because it's part of our, like, I live in Springfield, right? And so a
yeah,
little bit of our school district is Springfield, not much.
yeah,
And so you got city kids, and then you got kids that live in Buckhart, Illinois, which is the
yeah,
small, like you said, it is trees, forest,
yeah,
it's just country. And so we really have a different clientele in our school. We
yeah.
got some city kids, and then we got some country kids. And so it's a fun for me. I like it being a smaller school. Man, you get a different mix of kids, and it's a fun group. So
Right. Yeah. I just thought you would like those two stories.
I
And
do. Thank you.
and then on top of it, people are like, well, they're a this is the thing. It's oh, that's a small school. And I was like, you guys are about to find out, really. And I'm like, they're gonna come in there and compete. And that first year, then this past summer, our kids finally figured out, they're like, oh yeah, they're gonna compete. 'Cause I think we played your JV team this year. And I'm like, they're still gonna compete, guys. And they realized it. And I'm like, see, they can compete with anybody because the Twitter war of like Catholic schools and like the suburbs. And I'm like, guys, south of I-80 is a lot of good football. So I was up there defending you guys. I'm like, you guys are about to find out, like,
Thank you.
so I just thought you would like those stories. And I'm like, guys, they're willing to drive all the way up here and compete against the suburb school. So that's a lot of respect to the Rochester guys. I'm like, they're going to come up here and they're going to try to compete as hard as they can,
That's
and
right.
prove something, like they're going to play anybody.
Yeah.
And,
We've
and they
done
saw.
that, and we've done that for a long time. We went up to Northwestern's camp always, and now the Bears thing
Mhm.
with Gus and what he does, man, it's good for us because we man, it's number one. I don't like playing the teams you see, and
Mhm.
hey, in Central Illinois, you are it is not limited, but man, Champaign, Decatur, a lot of these schools we play, and so
Yeah.
um, so man, you got to go somewhere. So it's like, hey, I like going up to Chicago, great athletes, great, well coached teams, and man, you just get to see bigger schools with bigger kids a lot of times and more athletes, and so
Mhm.
something we've always tried to do is just go up there and play different people and compete against different people. And like
Yeah.
you said, say sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but man, try to get those kids just to compete. So then during the season, it's hey, you're ready to go, and it's like, hey, look who we played. Now
Right.
when we play our guys, it's like, hey, they're ready to go and they believe. So
Right. Um, I you probably don't know, maybe you do. When you guys were in the state title game, all I heard the freaking announcers going was saying Rochester's about to see a real like Catholic school defense. No offense to that team because they did what
yeah.
they had to, obviously. But I heard that and I get so irritated. I'm like, what are you talking about? Do you know who teams have to play to get there? And again, it's because I'm from Central Illinois. If I was from up here, I never would have thought twice. But
Yeah.
like watching it, saying like they're about to find out what a defense is, and just watching you guys play, I'm like, no, they're about to find out what Central Illinois toughness is.
Yeah.
Did you hear any of that go like from anybody afterwards or during it at all?
I can predict what would have been said, but then it was funny. You get on after the game, you look at your phone, you get on the bus, number one, you get a bunch of texts, and everyone congratulating you, which is
Yeah,
awesome. But about half of them were you can't believe these dang announcers, they're so
yeah,
stupid, all this
yeah,
goofy stuff. And so I didn't watch the game probably for a few days, maybe even the next week, actually on the TV,
yeah, yeah,
because I was kind of interested at the time. And then after watching, I thought, oh boy, yeah,
yeah.
it's people those guys don't. No offense, they don't know, and so all they
No,
do they hear Catholic League and they hear Catholic League equals tough, hard
yeah,
nosed
yeah,
football, and Central Illinois, Rochester equals they're going to spread it around, pass it, and I think we ran the ball 50 times for 300 yards. You know what I mean? It's
right.
like, come on, I get it at first, and they were physical and tough. That's not a knock against them at all.
Right.
But it's like, man, we're tough too, and our competition's tough, and we're tough down. It's
Yeah.
but
No.
they just go off what they've, I guess, reputation. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
In the end, that's all there, and that's hard because those guys haven't seen us. They maybe watch a few films of prior
Right.
games. they don't know, and so everyone in Illinois just thinks, oh, Catholic League tough, and it is tough, but
Yeah,
um, it's doesn't mean we're not tough either, and so yeah, it was a. You think by halftime they would have quit saying that, but they kept going with it, and
I
yeah,
know.
I didn't get that part of it, but it was good. It was good. Kids played really good, and man,
Yeah,
I thought we were going to have to pass a little bit more than we did, and we ended up running
yeah.
probably percentage wise a lot more than I thought we would have. So it was our kids played really well, and they give their kids credit.
Mhm.
That running back was a stud, and they kind of just kept hanging around, and they did a good job too. So
Yeah, I was listening to it and I'm like, one, that head coach down there for them does not know you're saying this. I said, Derek doesn't know that this is being said, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm getting mad. But again, like you said, like I know I've never played some of the teams in your conference, but at least I know you got to play Griffin, you got to play Chatham. Chatham's hit or miss; they're huge. You're
they're
playing
physical, right?
yeah, you're playing Springfields, and then it's like you play the playoffs, and it's like you're playing tough teams in the playoffs. So I don't know why edgy Tims of the world and them were like talking about. You can't call these people out. I can because I'm not a head coach. I don't give a rat's ass about anything. But I'm like, I just couldn't believe it, and it was because up here we're getting to the battle of private versus public. Like our youth program, they come onto our field and try to like get the kids. Like it's so bad. And that's why I think
Mm.
they were trying to talk it up a little bit of like, well, this is the Catholic League and you're about to find out this public versus private. I think that's why they kept talking it up.
Oh yeah, there's something, and that's a shame. And man, let the two teams be.
Yeah.
St. Lawrence, that was a great story this year. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
With Coach, what he's done
Hmm.
around, turned it around, and
Yeah.
man, getting them the state championship. And again, our reputation for whatever reason, just we're a spread, throw it around team,
Yeah.
and we do that some, but we're also pretty physical at times. And this year we were a physical team, and yeah, no, it's and there's some guys I love Edgy. He knows what he's talking about. There's some guys up there who definitely Susie and those boys.
Yeah.
Those guys, they do know what they're talking about, but some of them, like you said,
Hmm.
are clueless. They don't know anything south of I-80. Some of them don't know anything outside of Chicago,
No,
and so
no, no.
um, and that's and there, hey, we've got our butts beat by a lot of good teams up there. It matters the year. Hey, we're just like any school. There, we have our ups and downs, and our ups are a little bit more than some people's, obviously. But man, it's like anywhere. You it just matters the year. And
Right.
who you have. And this year we compete with some of them. Some
Right.
years you can't, and so it's just it matters how it goes. So
Why do you think that you do have that reputation of like you're a spread pass team? Because watching over the years, obviously, and listen to you talk, I think it depends for you what you have that year. I remember when you had the two twins, I think they were really tall, and
um,
you had Baker, the quarterback, he was just at Southern. Like, I think for you, it depends on I think you just coach to what you have, like any other public school is going to do. So why do you think that is? Because there are sometimes I think you guys pass, but like when I used to talk to Coach Hogan, and they're like, no, they run the football. Like, watch them. They're going to run the football. So why do you think that is? Like, why is that?
yeah, I think it goes all the way back to the Will Lunt, West Lunt, Air
Yeah.
Sean. You know what I mean? I think it goes all the way back then when we were really honestly. I mean, we were ahead of the no huddle fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we were one of the first few teams in Illinois to really do what we do. And so I think, and just that era of time, we did probably throw it around more than most people. And I think then they just assume as it goes. And then you get the Nick Bakers of the world, and you get some
Right.
of those teams that do follow that same. But really, you look over time, and a lot of our teams, the 12, 13, 14 teams, the 19 team was physical as a team,
Yeah.
and then this year's team was a man. And last year's, even though we didn't win the state, we were really that's the most I'd ever ran ever.
Hmm.
Two tight ends, and so I just think it was the reputation early on. I
Right.
think it was us being, one of the original, you know, if that so I think people and I think people at that time when we were going fast and spread, that's what was associated with the
Hmm.
spread. Now you're seeing much more of these teams, even at college, that are spread teams that are running the ball, right? That
Right.
are kind of running the gap scheme like we do. And so I think it's becoming more commonplace where I just think people just again they don't know, so they
Yeah.
see Rochester, and that's just and so that's my opinion. I think it just the spread and where we started. And I think people, that's just the first thing that comes to people's head
Yeah.
mind, when they talk about it. So
Because during that first five state title run, I was going to Eastern. You guys had to go play Charleston in that
right.
2011. I was not coaching at Charleston at the time, but I went and watched that game. It was packed, and it was a good game, and you guys, got away with it. But Hogan, Coach Hogan was the D coordinator, and you guys had to play him again. Well, then when he got the head job at Charleston, I had asked him about those games, and he was like, I had to pick my poison. It was stop the pass, stop the run. He goes, so I decided to stop the pass. Well, then you guys had a running back go to Iowa, I think, that year. So he was like, I
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. But I asked him, he goes, yeah, I mean, look at Charleston and all the teams. We were all running I formation and doing this. And then you guys come in, you're spreading it out. And they just weren't prepared
Mhm.
for it because the Apollo was like I formation, run, 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 run. But so that's why I was like, well, but you guys didn't even pass it much in that Charleston game. It was running it. So I don't understand any of it. And he was like, I just don't want to play Derek ever again or something like that. Or right now, like,
Nice of them. You know that, and that is those teams. First thing is, I believe this is there's been a few years where we've been very one dimensional, and that one year was probably 2011, probably the first year we played Charleston. But we had Wes Lunt and Zach Grant,
yeah,
who both led the state in every category, and so they were superstars at what they did. Every other team I've had, um, you got to be good at both. You got to be able to do both if somebody takes one away. Let's put it that way. In
yeah,
my opinion,
right.
there's very few teams. Cary Groves, the old Mount Carmel teams, the Wilmingtons,
Yeah, yeah,
there's teams that have these groups that they can just run the ball at you. And then, man, these guys are great coaches, great. But there's some years, man, if you're not, somebody's going to take away what you do best, and
right.
then can you take it to the next step and do whatever that is? And usually it's, hey, if they take away the pass, you got to be able to run. If you run, you got to be
Yeah,
able to pass, right?
right,
And so to win the championship, I believe, is you really got to be able to do both. It doesn't mean equally, but man, if they put 8-9 in the box, I got to be able to throw the ball on a play action. I
right,
got to be able to get the ball deep somehow, to counter what they're doing to win. I think 5 games in the playoffs and that's one thing. Except for that one year, I think we've been decent at both, and never sometimes one better than the other. But we've always had a quarterback that could throw it, and we always feel like we could run. Like I said, the only year I didn't feel like we were very pass dominated was that 2011 team. And then the next year, like you said, Garrett Dooley, he goes to Wisconsin. We were much more of probably a running team
right,
that next year. And then we played him that next year. And he probably, it's like facing two different teams. And
right,
so, yeah, that's definitely a belief of mine, and something I think most teams, except for some super teams here or there, you got to be able to do both.
right. Um, gonna take it back a little bit. You become the head coach at Rochester. Um, Rochester, correct me if I'm wrong, was not an old school or like old football, I don't think. So
96, I think, was the first varsity year for Rochester football. Yeah.
yeah, so it's not very old. You take over in the 2000s. Um, you're taking it over. What was like your culture philosophy thing coming in? Was it, how do I turn this into this program? My ultimate goal? Am I going to stay here forever? Like that's the type of things that go through your head. And then obviously you finally you get it rolling, so obviously you're there. But what was those first thoughts taking over this newish program when you come in?
Yeah. That's a great question. I was at Prairie Central where we had success, so we threw it. I was with Brian Hassett, who's still a great friend of this day. And man, had a lot of success, made it to the state championship, lost to Driscoll our first year there, and we were going empty every play, kind of the Riverside Brookfield,
Yeah,
throwing it around, crazy stuff, right? And so I was getting married that year to my wife, Lindsay, and she's from Springfield. And so, man, God just put this. I mean, this is basically Springfield.
yeah,
Put this, I mean, at 23, 24, I mean, and at that age, man, I didn't know any better, to be honest. I didn't know, I mean, yeah, I had a philosophy, but it was also, I wanted to be the best coach I could be. And I wanted to have fun,
right,
and I wanted to they just kept telling me, man, you gotta get the basketball players out, you gotta get these athletes out. And so, man, that's all I knew at the time was spreading out, throwing it, having fun, going,
Right.
eventually we started going fast, but we were kind of a slower no huddle team that first year, 2005. And I got blessed with a kid named Will Lunt, who, I think up till a few years ago was the all-time leading passer state of Illinois. And man, we were 3-6, 5-5, 5-5. But man, you know what? We had fun, and we just, you know what? I had no kids at the time. I grinded it out, had fun.
Mhm.
Something I probably couldn't do now. I know I
Right.
couldn't do it now. But I did then, and kind of that ignorance and young age, I think, was a benefit at the time. But a lot of things like philosophy and things, again, I didn't even think. All I did was just, man, give the
Mhm.
kids my best and got after it, and had fun.
Right.
And eventually, we got some good groups. We started, forming a program, forming a
Mhm.
system.
Mhm.
And at that time, what we do today, I was just talking to somebody on a Zoom. And I mean, it was luck how we ran into a lot of this stuff, um, the fast no huddle stuff. We were just doing it at the goal line. This was in my second year, and and we were going code words, and we were doing this
Yeah.
thing, and it was working. And it was
Yeah.
like, man, I got to do this all the time. So the next year we kind of developed into that. And
Yeah.
then we had wristbands. And so we were going 50-50. And the next year I was like, I hate these wristbands.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's kind of, man, now we've evolved to where we're at today. And so basically from 2007 to today, um, we've been doing the snow huddle thing. And so I think we're farther ahead than most people, obviously, and have
Right.
a system and the kids. And don't be fooled. I had some great talent come at the right time.
Right.
Like I said, after Will Lunt graduated, I had Sean Robinson, who was played at Purdue, quarterback, and then moved to middle linebacker, and then Will Lunt, or
Mhm.
Wes Lunt,
Yeah.
and had these great teams come at the right time. And then after that, man, it was just these kids just believed, and
Mhm.
now it's a program. But it was a lot of it right place, right time. God took care of me.
Mhm.
I think it was one benefit I always tell people is, yeah, they started football in '96, but one of the best things is a lot of the parents did not know football.
Okay.
And so you've been to basketball, baseball games, everybody knows everything. Not everyone
Yeah.
knows football, but especially when you're a town where a lot of the parents didn't play.
Right.
So a lot of these Rochester parents that had kids, they just trust you and they go with you,
Yeah.
and they like throwing the ball. And so as a youngster, I didn't get much feedback from the fans and the people, because
Right.
man, a lot of them hadn't played football. And so
Right.
a few people had come from other towns and played, but overall, I would say over 50% of the parents hadn't played. And
Right.
so that's kind of a interesting thing that I always talk about, that, man, I just had no kickback
Uh-huh.
early on.
Yeah.
And which was kind of neat, because man, they just trust you and they say, hey, just, take care of my son. And so it's kind of funny how God works and how you end up where you're at and where we're at today. So
Right. Well, you also have to be able to coach that talent. You were blessed with the talent, but you also have, I tell people about that Phil Jackson, like you still have to coach it. You still have to figure out, but maybe without you knowing that was your culture, like we're gonna have fun, we're gonna compete, and without you knowing it as a youngster, maybe that was like that set culture that you weren't even
100%. I'm not as organized even to this day. I have some great friends and people I listen to and
trying.
follow, and man, they are so organized, and they have, I mean, they got their 4 C's, and this is their programs,
Right.
courage and character. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I've never been like that or done that. I obviously, my dad. I think
yeah,
I learned from the best, and that in the end, you got to walk your walk and talk your talk.
yeah,
And if you do that, they will believe in you,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But if
Yep.
if you talk about those things and you leave, and you don't lead that lifestyle yourself, your
Yeah.
coaches don't, you don't do that at practice, you don't demand those things, that man, then you're a phony. And
Mhm.
these kids aren't going, man, I don't care what sport, anything, they're not going to follow you. And and I learned that from dad. I
Yeah.
think, man, you got to walk your walk and talk your talk. And so those things those guys do are great, and some of those guys also walk their walk and talk their talk. But
Right.
I see a lot of guys who do talk about all these things, and then you see them coach, and it's like, oh boy, that you're not, what you're preaching to them is not how you're acting. And
Right.
so it's interesting a lot of times. And I just my past and who I had as coaches outside of my father, basketball. I played basketball, baseball, played it all, and
Yeah.
my best coaches were the ones who, man, really whatever they preached is how they lived. That doesn't mean they're perfect and they didn't sin, but
Right.
man, they what they were trying to do, you
Yeah.
believed in. And,
Right.
those are the people. Those are the people I followed and trusted the most and respected the most, and that's how I try. I think that's how I just led my life early on and try to do to the best of my abilities because man, I really didn't have I couldn't repeat anything or say this was our or we follow this
Mhm.
guy's, I just try to live a good Christian life and have fun and I hope the kids followed because that's man, that's and to this day it's kind of like that, and
Right.
just I guess a little different. So
Well, I mean, it's working. I mean, it's
I
working.
hope.
I mean, well, and then now it's a town that knows football, kind of,
Right.
after a
Hmm.
while, and now you have these because then I guess that leads into like because you've had success and everything else, is there that pressure now? Because now they know football. I'm gonna put that in
Hmm.
quotations. They know football. You're doing all that stuff. Is there this pressure that's built, or are you just kind of like, you know what? If I let that hit me, then there is pressure. Like I can't let that hit me at all.
Yeah, it's fun. It's from 2005 when I took this job to today. This is a totally different town, and part of that, and it's because of football. I mean, and I'm talking, and I'm the school hasn't changed. It's a great community, great school. Um, but yes, how people look at football. Number one, because when they started football here, I think it was '96. Steve Taft, who started football here, he's a great man. Tells a lot of great stories that half the people didn't want it. It was a soccer town; they did not want
Mm,
football, and so there was still a lot of people when I got here that were anti-football. I don't see that near as much anymore. We're kind of like you said, football town, and
yeah,
which is a good thing. And so where we're at now is yes, a lot more people know it, but the rough thing now, which is again, I tell people it's a great problem to have, and I'm
yeah,
not complaining. But you do feel bad for the kids because we are a little bit to the point of title or bust. It's
yeah,
title or it was a failure
yeah.
in their minds, and that's unfair to a kid. The team 2 years ago, we lost to my dad's team
Mhm.
in the semifinals. It was one of the best teams that team played its God-given talents, probably better than any team I have had in 18 years, but man, we played a better team. They beat us and man, we didn't play good at the end, right? But that team played its God-given talent better than
Yeah,
maybe any team I've had, and so I was more proud of that team. But in their minds, man, they didn't make it and they didn't win that state championship, and so um, so you hate that for those kids because it is the feeling. And like I said, that's a great expectation. It's great to have those goals, but you also have to pull back and say, hey, look, this is look
hmm,
at what you did and who you are and what you were, because man, it's not as easy as just winning a state championship every year. It's hard, and we've been blessed to do it a few times. And but man, it's not easy, and it's not always going to happen. And it's not going to happen. It's not going to go perfect from here on out. I tell people there's going to be some ups and downs. We're like any public school,
yeah,
and we've just been on a good run. And but there is a times where it's a relief if you when you win it, and sometimes um, and you feel bad for the teams that don't, because man, they work just as hard. They just, man, for whatever reason, one game went bad, the balls went the wrong way one time, one bad call, and you don't win it. And so that's where we're at now, kind
right.
of, which is like I said, it's not. People think, oh, well, that I would rather have your life, and it's like, yeah, I get it. It's we are spoiled in that standpoint, but it is also tough on these kids because, man, it's imagine having to win a state championship where it's to a lot of them, it's man, it's kind of a failure. So
Yeah, I didn't even. I'm glad you brought up the kids part because I'm just thinking about you guys as adults hearing the fans scream because I'm not going to say we all. I knew if you guys don't win a state title, they say things, and then I see it on Twitter, and I'm like, you guys got to be kidding me! Like you guys went
yeah,
11-1 or 11, like you just said, you just went 11-1. Some teams don't even get
die
to
to
that
do that,
spot,
100%. And
and
with me, I've lived my life with my father and waiting 20 years for him to win it and having so many close calls, and I've been on both sides. I've seen both sides. I've been lucky as a kid. My dad won. I've been
Yeah.
lucky enough to win. So I've seen a lot of winning,
Mhm.
but I've also lived, man, winning a state, it's great. I love it. But man, after a few days, you go back to life, man. And then
Mhm.
you're on to the next year. And it's what do we got to do next? And it just never stops. It's never. And so these people think that it changes it doesn't.
Mhm.
And you better have a good base and a good background and believe in some other things because man, that it goes away quick. And like I said, I know a lot of people who switch and wish they had 9 titles. But man, it's funny how it comes and goes and how each year is
Mhm.
different. And you're just like all coaches want the next year. It's the next thing, and it's almost a relief at times more than it is joy.
Right.
Um, so it's interesting.
Yeah. And I can imagine that each year you have to kind of stop them. I know I would have to do this. I'd have to stop myself and them from like stop looking to week 14. Like no matter what we've done in our conference, we could win the conference every year. But like if you slip up or you don't respect a team, like, hey, we're supposed to beat this team, but if you don't respect the game and respect the team,
Right.
they might get you. Or like you said, with our refing shortage, like you don't know when a bad call is going to come.
Right.
And you don't know, maybe that team's on an upswing and we're not as big of an upswing. Or like now you're not prepared for the playoffs where you're gonna face a team that is going through the same thing. Like I feel like I would have to stop myself from looking ahead and like telling the kids, hey, it's week by week, day by day. Do not look to week 14 because you never know when you are going to slip. And it's proven like
Right.
there's times you guys have not made it, like
Oh gosh,
you got
yes.
right there and like, hey guys, like, hey, here's that moment. It just so happened to be week 13, you know.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. And my coaches have done a great job. And my whole thing is truly we really don't talk about it. We used to talk about it more when we didn't have one. And
Hmm.
it's like, man, we want to be state champs. We want to get there. That was our goal. And then once we got there, and you learn this, and I don't care who you are. You could be 3-6. Our job as coaches is I want my players to play to the best of their God given potential.
Yep.
And as a coach and them, I tell them that's our goal. Hey, and if you get to that and you get to be state champs, then God bless you. But if you don't get to that level, you're not going to be a state champ or you get close to that level, right? And so that's what we focus all summer is truly on. And we don't even talk about the state championship. Now, this year's team, they were pretty good
Hmm.
during the regular season, during the playoffs. I guarantee there were times they thought, I can't wait. We got to we're there. Who are
Right.
we playing? They're looking for him. That's natural human. It's
Yeah.
just how we are, right?
Yeah.
But really, in the summer, in the regular season, we've done a good job, and not me or my coaches and everybody. Just man, it's week to week, and
Hmm.
and that's what you enjoy is the journey. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's lame, and people talk about it. I'm more sad some of those years that I don't get to go to practice, and or those kids that I love are leaving and going to college. Just like man, they were fun.
Yeah.
They were fun to coach, and I'm more sad about that than I am winning, losing, whatever the outcome was. And
Right.
but as coaches, that's what we got to each kid to his God given potential. And in the end, if that's 3-6, if that's 14-0, if that's whatever, if you got them as close to that ability, then you've done a good job. And we really work on and talk about that. Um, Now, hey, in the back of their head, they know, hey, our goal is to be
Mhm.
state champs. But more importantly, we're only going to get there if we play to the best of our ability.
Right. And I think something else you have been blessed with is it doesn't seem like your coaching staff leaves. Like they've been there for a while. And I know when Steve got there, Coach Becker, when he got there, I remember Hogan telling me, like, oh, yeah, he was head coach at Lamphere, got to Rochester, and he's like, I'm never going to be a head coach again. I just want to coach defense. So you've had the D coordinator for a long time, just following and see what you've had the same coaches. So, like, I feel like if you had that coaching staff in place for the most part, that just continues to roll it through a little bit because you know what the expectations are. They understand the kids, they understand the area, and like, other
I
schools they
can't,
leave.
yeah, I can't tell you how big it is. I mean, it is. And we do. I bet we've kept Coach Nelson's been there since day one with me.
Hmm.
My freshman coach, who just is still around day one. I got about 3 or 4 guys that have been with me since day one, and the other guys like Coach Beaker. I mean,
Yep.
a head football coach, Rich McMahon, D-line, head football coach
Mhm.
at Porta,
Yep.
15 years, all those playoffs. I mean, I go through the list. Matt Lauber, who I just got, Southeast head coach, great coach.
Mhm.
And I just get these guys. And what I got now are former players. And so kids that know what it was, Tyler Mazzini, Matt Swain, and these guys that want to come back and be a part of it. And so I really am blessed when it comes to that because both ways, like Coach Beaker, man, he realizes he's been at other places, right?
Yeah.
He's like, man, this
Yeah.
place is good, and the
Yeah.
kids are good. It's fun to coach, and he doesn't have to deal with all the head coachy stuff. He gets to coach defense, coach these kids, and he gets to go home, and
Mhm.
these guys enjoy that. And two guys that coached me in high school, Coach Warren, who was my D coordinator, was my specialty coach. He was my D coordinator in high school. Jim Smith, who again has been with me since day one, was my coach
Mhm.
growing up. And so it's amazing that, I feel bad for guys that really had to go through the carousel because that's tough, to ever truly get. If football's not, it's not, no offense to basketball, some of these things, and even there it's hard. One guy, 15 kids, 12 kids, you can get, you know what I mean? You can
Right.
kind of create your system. When you have 100 kids, when you have 50 kids, you better have 5 or 6 guys
Mhm.
that know what you're doing, that are on the same page and going the same direction as you. Because so many assistants now, I get it, man. We in Illinois, we don't get, you guys don't get these. I don't get paid much as a head coach. I know the assistants don't get paid much, and so to have a family life, keep your wife happy, and you're
Mhm.
gone all this time for $3,000, $2,000, man. That's tough,
Mhm.
um, and that's what Dad taught me is you better make it fun. I think what we've tried to do is we've tried to make it fun for the whole family. I
Right.
want the kids to come out to practice. I want the wives to be a part of things. I want them to be a part of the family and part of the system. And I don't go out of my way to do crazy things because I also want them to have their time.
Mhm.
I tried. You come out to a practice, we've always had 4 or 5 little kids out there, whether they're coaches' sons, daughters, and the high school kids are the ones watching them, and they're just out
Yeah.
there playing, having a good time. And because if you don't, then your wife, it's like, man, why are we doing this? You're getting
Mhm.
paid 3,000 and you're gone all the time, and it's not. And I get it.
Yeah.
It is hard. It's hard to. You got to love it, and so I got guys that love it, love what they're doing. They enjoy it. Their kids enjoy it. Their families enjoy it, and so.
Yeah.
But that's a hard sell for a lot of people in today's world, and I when people come up with that, I say, man, I understand. That's hard.
Yeah.
It's not easy, man. And I'm in a lucky place. And I think these guys love it. They love coaching, but they also love Rochester. And
Mhm.
so we've been lucky with that.
Yeah, because I was gonna say you're pretty lucky. Like, part of it was COVID. After the COVID year, after that fall, we had like 4 openings, and it took us, or not us, it took him months and months, like not till the summer, till we could have like a staff, because one, people just there's not enough coaches anymore. I don't think they want. There's a
Mhm.
couple things. One, there's just no coaches. Two, like you said, well, wait a minute, I got to be there from 3:30 to 6. Yeah, because we got to practice and we got to break down the film. You got to do whatever. Oh, then I got to go to all these games. Well, what if I'm only there this time? And as a head coach, like, well, I can work with you on some things, but I can't have you do this all the time. Or it's like, well, I want to be paid. Well, I don't have enough stipends, or I don't have enough of this. Well, I can't pay. We can't pay you. Or it's, oh, am I the OC? Am I the DC? And they're like, no, like you're going to come in and learn and do things. And so it was hard to like build a staff. And um, we the main core of us have been there, but to fill a staff each year has become tough. And then we have people texting us, "Hey, you guys know any coaches that want to come coach?" And we're like, "No," because we're trying to find them. Nobody wants to. I shouldn't say nobody, but I think there's less
Not
coaches
many.
now.
I bet it's half what it used to. I bet 2000 to today, it's half. I bet it's half of what out of people that really want to do it for the right reasons. And COVID was a killer. Yeah, I think COVID kind of got my dad out. I think
Uh,
it got a lot of people out of the game. I think a lot of people became bitter towards a
mhm,
lot of things. They
mhm,
saw a lot of sides of life of parents and other things. And parents are getting people out. Let's be honest. It's like,
Yeah.
man, why am I dealing with this? It's the referee and say no difference. They
Yeah.
come in, these people are nuts. And it's like, man, why do I want it for $50? I don't want to
Mhm.
deal with this.
Right.
And like you said, there are so many factors. That's probably the hardest thing. And the thing I've been the most blessed is to keeping a coaching staff. And that doesn't
Right.
mean we don't get a little turnover, but overall, I guarantee our turnover is less than 98% of people's. And for all those reasons, everybody wants to be the call of the plays. Everyone wants to be the head coach. Everyone, until they get,
Hmm.
they want to be the sophomore. They don't want to be on the freshman. They don't. And so, oh, you get all that plus the pay. It's not good. Then you got your wife yelling at you about it.
Yep. Yep.
It ain't worth it. I need you home with the kids. And then, man, it just, and then they get out of it. And so, um, that's a hard, and I don't care. I think every sport does. Football's probably the least of them. It's hard for everybody, and anyone who doesn't think there's not a problem, there is. There's a referee problem. There's a coaching problem.
Hmm.
It's tough, and it's affecting our kids, and a lot of it is parents. I don't even want to go down that alley, and I'm lucky where I'm at. But man, it's people are crazy, and it's people just don't want to do it and go through it anymore.
No. Uh, I probably didn't help with the ref situation until COVID, especially in basketball. But then when COVID hit and I saw the real effect of it, I've taken a step back and I'm like, do I really need to get mad about this call? No, not
Yeah,
really. Football, do I really need to hoop and holler about this? No, probably not. So I don't anymore. And, uh, I coached baseball last year for a freshman team. I had to umpire our own game 6 times because no umpire shows up. And so
believe that.
you and the other coach have to agree to it. You have to stand behind the pitcher's mound when your guy's pitching and call balls and strikes from standing behind for your own guy. Like
Oh
it's
boy.
so then you call the AD and you go, well, do I get the $75 for refing the game or umpiring the game? Because and they go, no, you're getting a stipend. Shut up. Like you're not. And
I'm doing both. Oh yeah. It's funny though, COVID, it changed people's perspective. I hope, I think it's actually reverting a little bit back to the positive. I
Mhm,
do.
mhm,
Um, I think especially with the referees but I think coaches too. I think it's starting to, because there for a while, even before COVID, I noticed, man, it was dipping down, and I think COVID really hurt it. And then
yeah,
I do think it's getting a little better, but man, it's slowly getting better. It's not good by any stretch, and until you're put in those situations where you do have to ref, and it's like, man, this is like you said,
yeah.
because I'm rough too. I can yell, and I'm a wild man sometimes on the sidelines, and you're like, man, why am I doing this? This isn't, this poor guy's making $50, and
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
is it really worth it? And you feel bad, but it's hard as a coach because you're just sticking up for your kid. You
Hmm.
see something, you think, oh man, what the heck?
Yeah.
But then when you pull yourself back for a minute, you realize, and it's not worth it.
Well, that's why football is the best because if I complain, I just pretend I'm talking into the headset. I'm like, no, I'm just talking to the head coach. I don't know. And we actually had a college refereeing crew 2 years ago because they couldn't find refs. So this refereeing crew that was coming through, they're like, well, we're going to Indiana the next day. We'll just stop and do this high school game. And so I tried that. And that guy turned around and he goes, I ref college. I know what you're doing. Stop. And I was like, gotcha. And it was like the first quarter. I'm like, gotcha. I understand. And
You
I
can
said,
tell he knew what he was doing.
oh, yeah. He's like, I know all the tricks and turns. You guys aren't going to fool me. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. Uh, And the head coach, he gets mad about it, but he also laughs because I'm just in the headset doing it. He goes, "I can hear you," and I'm like, "I know, but I want them to think I'm just talking to you." And um, but yeah, and then the whole coaching thing is bad because like we looked another thing with the coaching thing. I think sometimes coaches want the guys in the building. Well, now some have adapted and say, "I gotta get guys out of the building because there's nobody in the
Yeah,
buildings anymore that want to coach." And then part of it was COVID, but like you said, part of it was before that. They were kind of done. And if you're a teacher and
yeah.
you're settled and you're like, I don't need to do this for 3,000, four thousand
Bingo.
dollars. Uh, I'm tenured, I'm not gonna go anywhere and I'm just gonna especially up here in the burbs and certain high schools that pay very well, they're like, I don't need to coach. I'm just gonna make my
Oh yeah.
6 figures and coach
Teach.
and
That's
and,
right.
and that's what's happened.
I,
So our head coach has adapted, get some guys out of the
yeah.
building.
I think the coaching world is. I think everywhere is going that route, and I've been lucky. I got Coach Nelson, who's my O-line coach. I got Coach Lauber now, but I didn't have I Coach Piper, who I had for a long time. I had one or two guys in the building. Everybody else was state workers. I got some cops. I got some guys that work at other schools. And those are the guys, man, if they want that, they're wanting to be there, right? It's
Yeah.
when you have to beg your teachers to coach and they think, well, I'm gonna do this for a few years, and once I get tenured, I'm gonna get out. So it was almost counterproductive, and there was obviously, you found some good teachers that were coaches, right? But a lot of times it's 50-50.
Hmm.
And so I think people are realizing, hey, we just got to find the best coaches, whether they're in the building, whether they're out the building. If they want to be here and coach, you better get them there to coach, because we're past the time of, oh, teachers got to be in the building. That's now, I think, hey, the head coach is the best if you're in the building, maybe. But even that, in that case anymore, I don't think that's a definite. And if you get a great coach, man, hire him, and
Hmm.
so I think that's old thinking that's kind of slowly progressing
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And part of it is just shortage of teachers and coaches. They got to do it. Otherwise, you're not going to fill coaching staff. And so
Yeah.
um, it's no different down here than it is up there.
Yeah. Well, the first time I saw it was Coach Hogan. He lived by Mount Zion, driving back and forth. He was the head coach, and I remember people were complaining, like, well, why he's not in the building? And I'm like, well, he wants to be there, obviously, so he's going to do the best that he can. And then, like, I was out of the building, and they're like, well, he's out of the building, but that might be a Charleston way of thinking. But they were like, he's out of the building. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm here an hour before practice. I'm here an hour after. And there's some assistants here that go home right after. Like, I'm trying to do the best I can. And, I've always coached. This is the first time here at Addison Trail that I've been in the building coaching these teams. I've always been outside the building. So, like,
Yeah,
I always told people, like, the best coaches aren't in the building all the time. Like,
that's right.
you made that good point. If they want to be there, they're already showing you, hey, I want to be there and I have to drive 20 minutes to get there, but I'm going to be there.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to not settle for that, but you have to accept the fact that this is where it is.
Yeah.
And
I got two guys, Coach McMahon and Coach Smith, who probably drive 45 minutes every day
wow,
to be
wow.
assistants, and great coaches, and they love it. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's that's exactly right. People people will make whatever excuse they want to make for something to be wrong, right? Oh,
Mhm.
you got to have more coaches in the building, and then if you do that, it's, well, we just need more coaches. People, parents, even administration at times, it's whatever they need to twist it and make it sound right, whatever
Yep.
they can make it sound however they want.
Right.
And it's not, you got to fill a good staff the best way you can,
Right.
whether it's in the building, out of the building. Find the best coaches you can find and go with it. And I'm lucky because I got a great school, great administration. But
Hmm.
a lot of places, man, it's just excuses after excuses, and they want to blame the blame game, and you just hear horror stories, and you feel so bad
Hmm.
because people are so clueless. It's
Yeah.
but it's sad. It's you need the best coaches, just
Yeah.
like you need the best referees. You just, man, we need people, and you need people to stay around and do it. It sound like it used to be.
Well, I knew there was a problem when, what was it, last year or the year before? That picture was floating around of like Texas where they were like, we still have 1,000 and some coaching jobs open in Texas. And I was
Yeah,
like, oh, so it's not just Illinois, it's really bad
right.
everywhere.
And they pay good. That's the crazy part. So imagine that. We
Yeah.
pay Illinois. I think Illinois is one of the worst paying coaches in the country. I know Florida, Illinois. There's a few others. It's sad what head coaches and assistants get paid. And but man, Texas, Georgia, those places, I mean, that's all they do is coach. And even some of the assistants, they might teach 1 hour, 2 hours, or they, like you said, they work somewhere else and they get paid 20,000, 30,000. It's like, man, and they can't find them. So there's a real problem everywhere, and it's just not money. It's just not time. It's just, there's a lot of things that go
Mhm.
into it that
Yeah.
it's a slippery slope kind of.
Um, to be more positive here, real quick, I wanted to ask you this
All
because I've been
right.
here a while. Um, where do you come up with some of your formations and running plays out of those formations? Because it's really fun to watch. Like, even this state title game, I think you did like a jet sweep out of this weird formation, GT counter thing or whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And then a little bit later comes back to it. Like, where do you find this stuff? Do you just sit down and come up with it? Do you talk to your dad? Do you talk to other people? Or it's like, hey, I'm the head coach and OC. I can do this. I can try this and see if it works. Like, I can't do that. I'm just the dumb old
Right.
line coach here trying to, but like, where, like, where do you go to get that stuff? Or you just kind of sit down and come up with it?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. There's a good part of that hey, you know what? I'm the head coach and I could
Yeah.
try it, which is fun because I'm. It's just how I was brought up in kind of my time in college with some of my coaches and my dad when how he came. Man, I just have fun trying things, and
Yeah.
so you know what? A lot of it doesn't work, and a lot of it you might not see in the games because I tried in practice and it didn't work.
Yeah.
In the end, you know, if you notice, we got, I forget, Henry, number 4. He was
Uh-huh.
going to touch
Yeah.
the ball
Yeah.
15 times in that game.
Right.
Why? Because he was our best player.
Yeah.
And so how do you do what you do? Right. I'm not. People probably think we have 100 plays. That is not the case. We have
Hmm.
so many running concepts. We have so many passing concepts. We got a lot of formations. It looks different, but in the end, we're running some of those concepts. We're just in the end, I'm trying to find ways to get these people the football that need to
Hmm.
touch the football, right? And and that's where the formations, that's where some of the and then hey, then I do have fun. I love it. I love scheming up things and figuring out, okay, how do I get this guy the ball with this concept, right? Or how do I because in that game, right, he was a receiver.
Hmm.
We ended up and we ran the ball well. And so it's like, okay, well, I gotta get him the ball in the running game. Now I'm not gonna put him at running back because he's not a running back, right? I can't let him have the ball
Yeah.
20 times. He's gonna get hurt or pounded. He's not built like that. He's a slot. How do I get him the ball other ways in the running game, maybe with some reverses, with some quick screens? How do I get him the ball, let him touch it so many times, and still stay with what we do as an offense? And that's where I kind of hey get creative at times and have fun. And you know what? That's what makes it still fun for me.
Yeah.
And I love that part of it. I love the schematics of it. I'm still playing quarterback. I just ain't taking the snap. You know what I mean? I'm calling it from the sidelines. I'm coming up to plays. I'm just physically not doing it anymore, and that's what's fun for me, and that's what's competitive for me. And so a lot of people ask that, and it's just yeah, it's just and some games, hey, we're more simple than others, and some games where we do a little bit more things, and for whatever reason, it's there's usually a reason. I just don't do it to do it. I think people
Hmm.
think I just do crazy stuff to do crazy stuff. That's not the case. Um,
Yeah.
but there are times where hey, we get certain people. In the end, it's like my dad. He always used to call it the man offense. You get the man the football, and it's as
Hmm.
simple as that.
Yeah.
And you got to find your best player and get him the football as many times as you can, in the right way. And it's hard, right? I mean, if you're a running team and they're keying the running back, hey, it's hard to get them the ball different ways. If you're an outside receiver and they know you're the best, they can double cover them. And so, how do you get that guy the football? And so, yeah, that's I know it's a long answer, but that's kind of how we get to those points. So,
Yeah. I just want you to know, I never thought you were crazy. I just thought it looked fun. And then it comes to the point of, but then, like you kind of said, are they being complicated? And I'm like, I think they just run gap scheme. If you look at it, there's power, there's GT, there's a little bit of dive or a little bit of zone or whatever you want to call it. Like I was like, I don't think it's too much. And so it becomes, or like I said, I've kept track, or like you're yelling a bunch of things, or like I'm watching and you guys have to yell this thing here and this thing here and this thing here. And I'm like, so that's where it comes down to like, are they being complicated? And I said, well, they can if they want, if they have the kids, but if they don't have the kids, they're not going to be. But then they're like, well, look at all these formations. And I'm like, I bet you he has less plays this game because he put in more formations. I almost bet that's what's happened, And at the end of the day, it just looks fun and creative. And you just kind of go, well, I didn't see that on Saturday from some team. So where did he come up with that? It's just kind of one of those things. Like, I just want to know where he comes up with it. And I'm like, I bet he just writes it on a napkin. Like, that's what I would do.
you got figured out though, man. A lot of what you said is so true. It's man, you're not that's about exactly right. I mean, it's we run a few schemes, just different ways of doing it and trying to figure out best ways you can to to get people the ball and to do it different ways. But you look, there's a few things that have not changed in our offense since 2005. And some of our gap scheme stuff, some of our quick game stuff, some of the screen stuff. You watch 2005 and you watch today, it's still
Mhm.
some of the same stuff. Now, how you get to it, the formations, how we're running it, how we're verbalizing things, different, yes. But you look at a lot of the stuff, the base really has not changed since 2005, which is, some people, and hey, not everyone thinks like me, and there's so many ways to do things. People, I tell people, and when I speak at clinics, I say you don't have to do it this way. I mean, there's so many ways to do stuff and
Yeah.
do it right and win championships. And man, this is just how I like to do it. I enjoy it. This is where we're at right now. There's a lot of different ways of doing things, and
Yeah.
so yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Will you change your terminology year to year, what you call plays, or does some of it stay the same?
Good question. Some of it we will, some of it, yeah. So it matters the year, matters the group. To be honest, a lot of it matters the quarterback, and
Hmm.
I try to keep as much the same all the way through.
Okay.
Um, but I do adapt in how some of the words and some of the
Yeah.
verbiage. So because I'm a big kids are going to memorize whatever you tell them.
Yeah.
24 dive for us meant, back in the day, 27 counter. It's the same thing as I call, roses. My kids knows it as roses, and we knew it as 27 counter. It's memorization in the end, right? I mean, no matter how you say it. And so changing, I think a lot of people, just because of how we were coached, people have a rough time with that concept of, well, this is how I knew it. This is how we're going to do it. And I get it. That's how I knew it too. But whatever you teach these kids, that's how they're going to know it, right? It's like taking a test. And so we'll change the verbiage, we'll add words, we'll do things like that because, hey, we do play these teams repeatedly, right? We've played
Right.
Griffin 15 times now, and is my father. And so I guarantee he knew a lot of what we were doing, what we
Right.
were saying. So we did have to change things, stay on top of it. Um, you know what I mean? And so you do adapt, but it's how much do you adapt? How much do you change without confusing yourself, including them? You know what I mean? And really, the quarterbacks who I base a lot of that on, to be honest with you.
Right. I remember the first time I changed something was power. I was like, when we all grew up, it was 44 power. It's going to hit the C gap. It's going to hit whatever. And as you get older, like I walked on to play at EIU and I'm like, wait a minute. They told me that's where I first learned power might hit A gap, B gap, or C gap. I have no clue. And I go, as a kid, you're like, what do you mean you have no clue? And they're like, how are they going to line up on defense? Like the down blocks might make it this, it might make it this. And so when I got to Addison Trail,
Yeah.
I taught them, I said that to even the coaches. I'm like, I don't know where power is going to hit. And they go, what? I'm like, because I'm the run game coordinator. So all the runs me. I'm like, I don't know. What do you mean? I was like, well, if they line up in this front, it's going to hit here. If they line up in this front, it's going to hit here. If they
Yeah.
slant in this front, it's going to hit here. Like, I don't know. Well, then they said, where's the running back supposed to go? And I was like, follow the guard. I don't know what to tell you. Follow him, you know?
Yeah.
So now
Pick the middle and then adapt. Yeah, no, I hear you.
I'm
And
like,
a
look,
lot of people struggle with that, and especially
yeah,
offensive people that aren't offensive people who did things a certain way, and
yeah,
that's all they know is once you start speaking, it's similar, and
mhm,
it's no different than what you did in high school, right? In a way, it's the same. Everyone's blocking down, kicking out, rolling
yeah,
through. I mean, it's
yeah,
no, man, you're just a little more advanced. You find out some more things. Teams are playing more different kinds of defenses.
yes,
Like you said, is it a
yeah,
three-man front, four-man front? You get into all those things, and hey, this is probably going to hit a little tighter. It's going to hit a little wider most of the time, but you don't know. Man, you got to follow your guard in the end, and then the great running backs and the great teams are good at that.
yeah,
But so a lot of stuff people don't like gray,
yeah,
and O lineman coaches are some of the worst. There's the gray stuff, the gray areas. Man, we like black and white. We like answers. And there's just some things that are gray areas, right?
mhm,
And some of the best things I've done is when I've adapted to kind of black and white to go into the gray and say, we're gonna pass pro like this, we're gonna kind of sift and figure it out, and that doesn't mean there's not rules, but we also let our kids kind of also adapt on the run.
mhm,
And some of the best years I've ever done is when I've kind of pulled back
mhm,
and I've let those kids kind of, hey, are we always gonna say we're gonna have a foot and a half splits? I mean,
yeah,
why? If they like getting tight, let them be tight. If that's what makes them comfortable, God bless them. Now, if
right,
they ain't blocking, then hey, we'll fix it. But these
Right.
kids were pretty good at what they did. I'm gonna let them get tighter. I don't care if it's less than a foot split.
Yeah. Yep.
Forget it. You know what I mean? And so we have all these rules and these bases, and then sometimes it's funny how it just changes. I, you know what, I probably with the running back quarterback mesh stuff, like on different run plays, I was very, your heels are on toes, you got to go
Yeah.
across. And it's funny, as the summer goes on, they veer away from that. But you know what, I learned to, hey, as long as they ain't fumbling
Hmm.
and they're going in on the right path, you know what, I'm kind of gonna, let's pull back and say, you know what, I'm gonna let them go a little bit.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I change it, then they fumble, they don't like it.
Yeah.
As long as they're getting to the right spot, right time, hey, you kind of pull back. And again, us as coaches, we hate that because it's usually very black and white with us, and we
Yeah.
struggle anytime it gets in the middle like that.
Oh yeah. It's old school versus new school, I guess.
It
Like,
is. It is.
I've learned that every single year where you have to take, because I'm a line coach, and like you said, I like answers. I like things to be perfect,
Mm-hmm.
but I've also learned over the years I'm not going to have the answer in practice. Now in a game, I can adapt and tweak things and do whatever. And I've learned, well, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to give you tools. So like a couple of our run plays this year, I say, hey, there's this technique to get to this person. There's this
Mm-hmm.
technique, and there's this technique. I don't care which one you pick. You might be faster, so you don't have to do this. I got a scooch technique from Ohio University. It's how they scooch in to get to the guy quicker.
Yep.
If you're a quick guard, you don't have to use this. You're going to be quick enough to take your one step, boom, you're there. My 270-pound offensive tackle, 60-pound, you might be a little slower. So you're going to have to use this. However, and so what started to happen was they come to the sideline and I'm like, okay, this guy's beating you. What technique are you using? They're like, well, I'm using the load step. Hey, why don't you try the scooch? And they're like, yeah, I'll do that. And then they do it. And now they're figuring it out. So I've
Yeah.
kind of adapted it to that where it's like, hey, my job is to not beat you up anymore. My job is to not do this, this, and this. It's like, I'm going to give you tools. You pick which one you're going to pull out and use. If you can come communicate it with me, we can figure it out during a game. Coach, sorry, I didn't do the kick slide on the pass protection. I had to sprint to get there to get to him. And I'm like, but you blocked him, right? I really don't care at the
Yeah, I
end of
know,
the
right?
day.
That's right.
Or the
And
funny,
and now with all the different defenses, you almost have to do that to a point.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And even different in a game, you might see 2 to 3 different schemes against you,
Mm-hmm.
and it all changes how you do things up front, right? It's power is going to be black different in a 3-3 than it is the 4-2, obviously,
Uh-huh.
and so you have to. Yeah, there's some things you say, hey, you better never do that again, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Mhm.
Stop. Right, we're gonna do these are your two options, or this is your man,
Yep.
this is your one option. And some kids, hey, you got the whole playbook. You're pretty good. You can, right, and each kid's different
Yep.
in what you allow them to do. And
Yep.
great coaches that I've are good at realizing that, man, each kid is different,
Mhm.
and every kid you're gonna treat differently. And it's just, it doesn't always have to be done one way. Some things, yes,
Mhm.
but a lot of things no nowadays, and you just give them those options, like you said.
Yeah, it's because they were almost like when we all played sports, it has to be this, has to be this, where you're not doing this. And then if you look back on it, we feel handcuffed, we feel whatever. Now you're kind of, because I think, like you said, coaches, we don't want those kids to like make decisions. We're like, nope, it's my way, it's my way, it's my way, it's my way. And because you don't want to be wrong, you don't want to look stupid.
Right.
So now I do it. I'm like, okay, you could try this, but if it doesn't work, I'm going to look stupid. And then you're going to have the consequences of it because now I look stupid. Or now I've actually switched. I'm like, well, hey, you can do it. You're the one on the field playing, not me. I said, I'm on the sideline waving at the moms or something like, hey guys, you're the one looking dumb on the field. But I have that relationship with those kids where I can say those things and joke with them and do that stuff and have fun. Um, and then they know when I'm being tough, why they're making that mistake. But like, I had a senior who ever since he was a sophomore started every game, and he told some of the kids like, "Hey, Coach Steve's going to say this to you. You better figure it out." Like it started to click, and
Yeah.
so even like we were a big wide zone team this year, and I taught the wide zone how to cut. Our running back made a cut all the way to the backside A gap, and it looked awesome. And he goes, "I'm so sorry that the cutback was so far. I know it's supposed to be here." I'm like, "Who told you it's supposed to be right there? I just want you to get yards. I don't care how you did it. You got 8 yards. That's all I care about, you know."
Right.
And so they apologize for it because they're getting asphyxiated on why no, I'm supposed to hit it here. I'm like, no, you're not. You're supposed to hit the open gap and go. I don't care
Yeah.
where. or power. Hey, if you bounced it outside and there was nobody there, God bless you because you just were an athlete and got yards. You're making us look smart.
That's right. Basketball is I think one of the biggest difference in sports. When I was growing up, you had to be, they called a play, you were here, you screened down, you
Yes.
screened
Yep.
away.
Yep.
Now basketball is a lot of 4 out, 5 out, spread the floor. Yeah, you screen, but at the certain, it's not all set. It's kind of reactionary
Yep.
compared to when we were growing up. This when he called this play, you were here,
Yeah. Yep.
and football, it's always going to be play oriented. It's always going to be schematic oriented, but there's a lot more flexibility than I would say when I played.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
just like you said, the tools and things you're available to do and use, and a lot of that's defenses. You have to adapt and different ways of defense back in the 90s. If they were 4-3, they were probably 4-3 the whole time. You knew what they were going to be in about 95% of the time. Nowadays that's not so much the case, and so your kids got to be able to move on the run and think on the run.
Yep.
And so
Well, like my freshman year, we played a 5-2, and the kids are like, "What's a 5-2?" And I'm like, "You guys have no clue what a 5-2 is with the tilted nose. You don't understand what it is."
no, right.
I'm like, "What's a tilted nose?" And I was like, "Don't worry about it." Well, why did you
Yeah,
guys
they have no idea.
They go, "Why'd you guys play that defense?" I said, "Because every team we played ran the option, and we ran the option, or we ran this. Like you had to pack up the line and put five people up there." Or if you run, like you say, if you run a 4-4, it's a 4-4. There's no dropping back. It's like we're here, cover
Right.
the flats, cover three, whatever it is. There,
That was it.
there was no quarters, there was no mix, there was no blue, there was no passing it off. It was
Nope.
I'm staying here. They're probably going to run the ball 90% of the time. I just got to tackle.
That's right.
And then when you see a team that's spreading out throwing it, you're like, oh shoot. Well, this is their time. They're gonna win probably because this is their time.
That's right.
Or like I try to tell the kids, hey, we don't block guys. When I was in high school, because we ran the triple option. They go, what do you mean you don't block people? I'm like, well, you got to read somebody. What do you mean? I'm like, oh God, you guys don't even
Yeah.
know.
They just know from the shotgun, the zone read. It's they don't realize it's the same thing, just a different way. You just, it just died under center, hitting it fast and a lot quicker. And
Well, that's
that's all
why.
it is. That's all football is now is triple.
Oh
That's what
yeah.
everyone doesn't understand. There's so many of those elements that are still in the game in the same. It's no
Mhm.
different. It's just done. It just looks different. But the
Yes.
concepts really are very similar.
Yes. That's why I coached at my high school that they did that. So I'll sometimes help out quarterbacks. I used to coach quarterbacks, and so we're doing zone read or doing that stuff, sometimes they are jerks and they go, well, you're the O-line guy. You can coach this. I was like, hold on a second. Like, you guys don't even know. I understand triple option. They go, this ain't triple option. I'm like, are you reading that guy to throw a bubble or hand it off? Yeah,
That's right.
it's triple option.
That's right.
Like, or you could run it. I'm like, that's what a triple option was under the center before you were even
All
born.
it was. That's right.
All it was. And so me understanding it to them, they go, I guess you know what you're doing. And I'm like, kids don't even know.
No.
No. Well, coach, I appreciate you spending all this time with me today. I appreciate it. Not a lot of scheme. I like talking about everything else around
I
football.
do too. That's good. I need a break from scheme anyways. I like it. So.
But no, I appreciate your time being on here today.
All right. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.